Hello, everybody. This is JT Productions, and welcome back to another 2023 preview and prediction video. And welcome back our guest.
Yeah, this is Gator Gert, ready to take a look at my team, the Florida Gators. Look at what they did last year and take a look towards this year.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So, last year, coming off firing Dan Mullen, Florida ended up going a measly 6-6 in the regular season with a what was it, Las Vegas Bowl loss?
Yeah.
To the Oregon State Beavers. So it started out very good with a win against Utah, but it just went off the rails with some lackluster performances by Anthony Richardson and the defense and the whole team as a whole. So,
Yeah, defense was a problem last year. Have a new defensive coordinator coming in this year, Austin Armstrong. Very excited about what he's going to bring to the table. Offensively, I think we're going to be improved. I think there are going to be some holes, but I do think we're a better football team this year than last year.
that is completely fair. I mean, mainly the losses did come down to the defense and Anthony Richardson just not being ready. Except we're excluding the Oregon State loss. That was just because the team was not ready to play, really, at all. But now you got a new defense coordinator. Billy Napier's second year. We'll see if he can't get into a rhythm. But the main thing that strikes me about this team, it's very similar, eerily, to Georgia in 2016 when Kirby Smart first got there. You have a first year starting quarterback, while Jacob Eason was a freshman and Graham Mertz is not. It's still the same concept. Your running back room was very talented with Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel, and with here Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson. Wide receiver core, besides one very elusive, shifty receiver, is very young, unproven. I wouldn't say lackluster, just not really there yet. And the speedy receiver, Isaiah McKenzie to Ricky Pearsall. The offensive line is still a work in progress. Not a lot of pieces have gone into place yet. Look at Georgia's 2016 offensive line, not that good. Defensively, you have a lot of young stars that are not proven yet. Like for Florida, Jalen Kimber, who came over from Georgia. And you have Shamir James. You have another transfer in Mitchell, linebacker, Princely. I cannot say that last name, so I'm not saying that last name. And a bunch of other guys. And you have a transfer, a transfer corner or DB that's not really proven, but has a lot of talent in Jalen Kimber as well, to Maurice Smith, who came over from Alabama to Georgia.
Yeah, we've got a very, very unproven roster this year. At receiver, outside of Ricky Pearsall, a lot of them are unproven. Caleb Douglas showed great flashes last year. Ty Chikau Bowman was a JUCO transfer last year. Didn't get much playing time the first half, but as the year went on, he started earning some playing time. Aiden Mazzell, Eugene Wilson, and Andy Jean are all true freshmen. I expect all of them to get pretty substantial playing time. Mazzell and Jean are just lightning fast. Eugene Wilson is just very shifty. We've got some talented offensive linemen. We've got transfers. We've got Damian George from Alabama, Keontae Goodwin from Kentucky, and I think both of them are going to play a major role in the success of this team. Now, looking at running back, I think Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson are one of the best duos in the country. We have the transfer from Tulane, Cam Carroll, who is very talented. But the quarterback room has to be the biggest question right now. I don't think we need a savior at quarterback. I think we need a game manager at quarterback. And I do think Graham Mertz is going to give us that opportunity. Defensively, Princely Umanmielen is a great player, gets great pressure on the quarterback. Cam Jackson, the Memphis transfer, is going to be a stud. Shamar James, going into his sophomore year, is doing great. And obviously got to give a shout-out to Big Dez Watson, probably my favorite player to watch. And we also have some defensive transfers in Manny Nunnery. So I do think we're going to be talented if we can stay healthy. So,
Yeah, and that's what you hope with every football team. You never want to wish injuries on anybody. So with that and a good little look over the roster, let's take a look at this schedule to see what me and your resident Florida fan, good old Gator Gerp here, think Florida's going to do this year. So to start it off, at week 1 on the road in Salt Lake City, the first true road game for Florida since the mid-90s outside of the state of Florida, at Utah. This is going to be a very difficult game for both teams. Last year, Utah came down to the Swamp and ended up losing in a big upset that catapulted the Gators up into the top 10. But Cam Rising's still there. While that is a big get for Utah, I think Florida has improved a good bit as well when it comes to defense and when it comes to their all-around team. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Florida gets a big upset in week 1 in Salt Lake City to start out 1-0.
Yeah, I was actually there last year for the game versus Utah. Great atmosphere, but unfortunately, Florida's not going to have that behind them this year in Salt Lake City. I think Cam Rising coming back. I do think Florida matches up well with them defensively. However, I think Utah takes this one week 1.
All right. The next week, we got McNeese State at home. I think this is not going to be a problem. I think y'all's running game is going to be off the charts. While now, Georgia in 2016, they had a similar situation. In the week 2 game against a team called Nichols State, Georgia ended up winning the game only 26-24, I believe. And it could happen here to Florida, but with it being Billy Napier's second year, I think that they're able to look past that and are able to win this game easily. So I think Florida will win this game.
Yeah, I think Graham Mertz makes some very confident throws against McNeese State. I think offensively we're just simply too much for McNeese. I think we win this one big.
All right. Week 3, the third Saturday in September. This is going to be a big game. In the Swamp, Tennessee coming off a big year last year with Hendon Hooker and Josh Heupel and all the pieces coming back and all the pieces leaving as well. Joe Milton is their quarterback. Now, while I don't think Joe Milton is going to be absolutely terrible, I do think he may struggle to start out the season. That offense is very finicky when it comes to how quarterbacks play. Quarterbacks in that offense need to make quick decisions, and they need to be very accurate with the football. Joe Milton has progressed a lot over the past few years from coming from Michigan. He's gotten more accurate, but he has his moments. With that all being said, though, Tennessee's offense, I think, is going to be too much for Florida this early in the year, so I think Tennessee takes this one for Florida's first loss of the year.
Yeah, and looking at it, Florida has not lost 2 in a row to Tennessee since the early 2000s. Tennessee's going to have a very talented team offensively. They still have a lot of weapons. But with that being said, it's in the Swamp. I think it's going to be a rowdy game, 7 p.m. kickoff in the Swamp. I think Florida does take this game and gets their season on track.
That is completely fair. Honestly, you and Tennessee play each other very close in games where both the teams are competent. So I could see that going as well. I mean, y'all's defense played decent against them last year too, so that could happen. The next weekend it's Charlotte. I think y'all will be able to take care of the 49ers and be able to go get another win to get closer to bowl eligibility. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. Charlotte is one of the weaker group of 5 teams, so I don't think y'all going to have a problem.
Yeah, I think Florida wins big in this one.
All right, going on to the next week to one of the biggest games of the year for Florida, on the road at Kentucky, Kroger Field. Florida has lost 2 in a row to Kentucky for the first time in probably 50 years, or more than that. This is going to be a big game. Devin Leary is coming over to Kentucky from NC State, and so is his running back. They got very young, good receivers. Their defense is always good at Kentucky. They still have Cavassier Smoke. Their offensive line is going to be iffy, in my opinion. But with that all being said, though, I think Florida gets it done. I think Florida goes on the road to Kentucky, gets a big win in Kroger Field, and I think it's the defense that gets it done. I think maybe in a 21-17 win, y'all are able to beat the Wildcats on the road to get a big SEC win for Billy Napier.
Yeah, I think Florida's going to have a chip on the shoulder, especially after last season. Devin Leary addition is going to be huge for Kentucky. It's in Lexington, which is going to be tough. Florida has struggled there in the past, but I do think that Florida pulls this one out.
Yeah. Then you have homecoming at home against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt last year got the best of Florida in Nashville, but that was a Florida team that had pretty much their heart ripped out of their soul when it came to the season. They were coming off losses to Georgia, LSU, so on and so forth. But I think that they're going to get a big revenge win at home against the Commodores to go to 5-1 to this point.
Yeah, homecoming at home against Vanderbilt. Obviously, last year was not the best game in the world. Some very sloppy play, some slow starts, some turnover issues. But I think Florida has that cleaned up in year 2, and I think Florida wins this one by double digits.
I can see it. Next up, you have a big road game before you go into the bye week. This could be the night game on ESPN. I could see it being South Carolina, Spencer Rattler coming back for another year. South Carolina did get ravaged by the transfer portal this past cycle, but Shane Beamer has rectified that by getting some guys in on defense, and they still have some guys on offense to run the offense. At this point, Florida will be 5-1. They'll be riding high, probably ranked, I'd say maybe top 20, top 15, with wins against Kentucky and Utah. But I think it stops here in Williams-Brice Stadium in South Carolina. That is one of the most underrated places, environments to play in Williams-Brice Stadium. They're going to be rocking. They're going to be ready to get an upset like this. So I think that it happens here, and I think Florida drops their second loss.
Yeah, South Carolina last year was a really good game at home for the Gators. Forced Rattler into 3 turnovers on 3 straight possessions. Florida won by double digits in that one, but I don't see that happening this year. I think Spencer Rattler is going to be much improved. I think the South Carolina team as a whole is going to be much improved outside of the tight end position, obviously with losing Jaheim Bell to Florida State. So I do think South Carolina takes this one in Columbia.
Yeah. So going to the bye week, we both have you at 5-2. So very respectable, honestly, coming from that horrible start you had last year. I think you were 3-3, were you not? So respectable. You probably ranked maybe in the top 25 still, even after the loss to South Carolina, and going into the game against Georgia, which is probably going to be your hardest game of the year. Even though it's at a neutral site, Georgia just out-athletes you at this point. No disrespect. It's just right now Georgia, the best team in the country, at least in my opinion. They have athletes across the board that can run sub 4.4s, that can bench however you think, and are stronger than daggum half the people in the daggum Big 12. So I would say Georgia wins this one. I wouldn't say by 30 or 40 points, but I would say maybe in the range of a 38-17, something like that. I just don't think that Florida's offense is going to be enough to put pressure on Georgia's defense.
Yeah. And I think until Napier truly gets his players in, we've had our problems with the transfer portal right now. I think Georgia's just bigger, stronger, faster, and more talented at this point. Georgia wins this one by double digits.
Yeah. All right, so now that's your third loss. You're 5-3 going into a game in Gainesville against Arkansas. This is an interesting game as well. KJ Jefferson, Walmart version of Cam Newton, like we iterated in the Alabama video. And they have some pieces with Raheem Rocket Sanders and A.J. Green that rushing game. If this was last year's Florida team, I would say that that's more of a problem. But since y'all have a better defense, I think y'all will be able to handle them better than y'all could last year. I think that y'all win this game on the reason because Arkansas's offense is not going to be as good as it has been in the past. So I'm going to give y'all a win to bounce back after 2 straight losses.
Yeah, bounce back game opportunity against Arkansas, especially after coming off losses against South Carolina and Georgia. I do not think Arkansas is the most talented team that we're going to see this year. I don't think they're one of the top 4 most talented teams we're going to see. So I do think we take this game, and I really don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think we're going to have good answers for KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. So I'm excited to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, and now you got a back-to-back road game stretch, which is never easy, especially in the SEC. You have at LSU and you have at Missouri. I went back and forth on this. I don't think that you win both of these, but I don't think you lose both of these either. At LSU, they're going to be, same way with Georgia, just I think they're going to be bigger, faster, stronger. Brian Kelly is getting his guys in there. He's using a bunch of Ed Orgeron's recruits, and they're just going to be very much improved from last year. So I think you drop another one against a better team in LSU on the road in Tiger Stadium before going on the road to Como, Columbia, Missouri, and getting a big win against Brady Cook and the Missouri Tigers. I think Missouri is going to be an okay team next year. I don't think they're going to be spectacular, but with guys like Luther Burden and I forget the other receiver's name, they have a pretty good running back who came in last year. Their offense is going to be pretty good. I just think with all the defensive talent they lost in that front seven, that they're not going to be the team that they were last year where they almost beat Florida and almost beat Georgia. So I give Florida the win on the road in Columbia.
Yeah, I agree totally with both your predictions there. I think LSU at that point in the season is going to be vying for a spot in to win the SEC West. So I do think that we drop that game, but I do think it's close. Last year LSU was much more talented. We hung with them neck and neck there till the end. And then I think we go to Missouri and take care of business.
All right, and then the final game of the year, rivalry game at home against FSU. This is going to be an uphill battle for Florida. While I think that it is possible that they are able to get this game and take it away from FSU to ruin their chances at potentially a college football playoff, this is going to be a very tough game for Florida's DBs and corners because of the height advantage that FSU has in the DB department. Their tallest receivers are a tight end and a wide receiver, Keon Coleman, and I think Gene Bell, that are both 6'7". And then their shortest receiver is 6'3". So I think that FSU is going to have an advantage there. They're going to have an advantage against almost every secondary in the country with that height. Their running back is good in Trey Benson. Their quarterback is good in Jordan Travis. Their defense is getting better. They still have Jared Verse at edge. So I just don't think Florida is going to be able to. Their only advantage in this game is the home field advantage. So I think FSU takes this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Last year Florida went neck and neck with a very talented Florida State team. In looking at it this year, I think it's going to be almost the same. On paper, everybody's going to pick Florida State. But I do think Florida finishes this season on a high note. I think Florida State's going to have potentially the college football playoff in their vision, and Florida's going to knock them off the rails and still won last game of the season.
All right, so there you go. 2 different predictions. I predict Florida will go 7-5 with big wins against Kentucky and Utah and Arkansas and Missouri. Yeah. And Gator Gerp here will say that they're going to go 8-4 with big wins against Tennessee, Kentucky, and FSU. So there you have it. Sorry there. Florida, you're looking at an improvement over the last 2 seasons, going right at 500, and hopefully you get a bowl win to go 8 or 9 wins.
Absolutely. That's what we're hoping for.
Yep. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for being here, brother.
Anytime. Enjoyed it.
Hope y'all are ready for hearing more of him throughout this SEC preview predictions, and there will be more guests coming along the way when we get into more and more conferences. So hope y'all enjoyed, and Go Dogs.